video we're going to be looking at the diffs, and we're also going to take a look at the shocks as well, as some of them feel like they maybe have lost the fluid. So we're going to check the shocks. The rear ones feel alright actually, it's just the front ones feel a little bit like they've lost a bit of fluid. So we're going to check the shocks, we're going to check the diffs, get it all tuned up, and then once we've got that we're going to take it back to the BMX track and just see if it makes any difference tuning these diffs. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll go into the front diff, we'll check that out first, take it out, fill that up, and I'll show you how to do that, and then we'll do the rear one, and then we'll have a look at the shocks. Now a lot of people have asked me what diff fluid should I put in this car, and it's a really hard question to answer because it does depend on a lot of different things. It depends on A, where you're running the car. Are you running it on the road? Are you running it on a track? Are you running it on loose gravel? Are you running it on grass? Also, as well, it does make a difference where you live in the world. If you live in a really hot climate, then you're going to get away with probably thicker liquid because with the heat, it will thin out a lot quicker. If you're in a cold climate, again, the liquid's not going to heat up as much and it's going to stay a bit more viscous. So all those things actually do make a difference. Now I'm going to set this up how I like my cars to run. Now, the way I like my cars to run is I like to put some thicker diff fluid in the front, and I like to put some thinner fluid in the rear, but not by much, quite similar. I like to get power through the corners, and if you want to power through the corners, then you definitely want some slightly thicker liquid in the front. I don't like my back end spinning, and that causes the car to understeer and then spin out. So I like to put a little bit of thinner liquid in the rear, stops the rear wheels spinning as much. It does make the back end a little bit more looser, so it will kind of like, if you like, more float out than spin out, if that makes sense. But you can make it controllable. So the way I'm going to set this up is for where I run it, which is mainly the BMX track, which is mainly like a loose surface. So I'm going to put 30,000 in the rear, I'm going to put 50,000 in the front, and I'm going to see how that is. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying what other people do is wrong or right. I think that's probably the thickest you want in this car. It's only 1/12 scale. 50,000, 30,000 should make this car a little bit more stable on that loose gravel, but we will see. I might be proved wrong, so wait to the end of the video to see actually if it does work or not before you start putting any diff fluid in your car. But yeah, it's like I say, it's very personal choice what diff fluid you want to put in your car. You don't want extreme, so you don't want, say, 100,000 in the front and 20,000 in the rear, or vice versa. If you're not sure, I'd probably just go kind of even, do like something like 30,000, and then use the slipper to adjust the way it runs, loosen the slipper off, tighten it up to kind of balance it, and that will work absolutely fine. I don't know what's in here stock. We'll open these up now and we'll have a look, and we should better tell kind of what the stock is. So the first screws I'm going to have to take out is these front here. I presume I won't need to take out, I presume it's just going to be these ones here and these two here that I need to take out, and also the front bumper as well, but we'll see how we get on. I'm not going to be using a power tool because most of these screws are 1.5s and I don't want to risk damaging them, so I don't know if I need to take these screws out here. I'm just going to take these 4 out here and this front bumper and see if I can slide the actual front of the diff cover off. Really should look at the manual, but I think you learn better doing it this way. If you make a mistake, it's usually easily rectified. Now these front screws here, I've got plenty of mud in them. So I'm going to use this, which is for actually putting holes in your body. And it's quite good because it's got a nice thin tip. And you just want to get all that mud and crap out of there, because if you don't and you try and unscrew it, you do risk rounding off these screws. This is what I do find strange. You've got 1.5 screws, quite small screws holding in at the bottom, and then holding in the bumper, you've got 2mm. It's very strange. I don't get that. Right, they're long screws are these ones going front, but still very, very thin screws. Right, let's take this off the top here, which I presume is a 1.5. Yeah, there we go. Right, and then these two screws here, back to 2mm. Okay, that's quite cool. That slides off. That's your front bumper, and then your front hinge pilling slides off. It's really nice and thick actually, that. It's really thick. It's at least 5mm. 7? No, 5mm. That's nice and thick, is that though? It's held up well as well, no bending or anything. Right, I think these two screws here, this one and this one here, are the ones that need to come out. and I am going to have to take this sway bar off as well to get into this. Right, I've just had another look. I don't think it is them two screws in the actual there. I think it's just that screw there and that screw there, which are going down. And then, yes, I'll need to remove at least one side of the sway bar. Maybe I can just undo these and move it out of the way. We'll have a look. I've never seen a car with so many different sizes. Never. Right, let's see if we can get this off without having to remove the sway bar, but maybe not. Right, that's a lot of screws I've removed so far. And, yeah, still not coming off. I was going to undo these shocks. I'm taking the shocks off anyway. So we'll get them off and out of the way. Now we need a 2.5. I've never known cars with so many different screw sizes. And random places as well. Well, yeah, we're going to do the shocks anyway, so I might as well get them out of the way. God, Jesus Christ, where's that come from? Yeah, the shocks definitely feel like they haven't got much fluid in them. So it was either that they didn't have much in the first place, or I've lost some, but I haven't seen any leaking, signs of leaking. Right, that's that shock off. And the shock, to be honest with you, does feel a little bit squidgy. Not too bad, but yeah, we're definitely checking the shocks. Let's get the other one off, and then we'll see if we can get this front diff cover off. I know some of you will be like, well, why don't you just look at the manual? Well, one, I'm not at home. I'm actually staying away at the moment with work, so I don't have access to the manual. But secondly, I kind of enjoy working on cars without the manual and just kind of working out for yourself, you know, where everything goes. And, you know, I'm putting all my screws and bits together so I know what's what. And I've taken enough RC cars apart in the past to kind of have a good idea of how these things come apart. So we will get there. This shock don't feel like there's any fluid left in it at all. So we definitely need to leave that and open up. Yeah, look. I've just noticed something as well. Yeah, these shocks don't look the same size. Yeah, you see, is that me or is it not the same size? Okay, well, we'll investigate that. Right, I think I'm going to have to take these two little front screws off here. That's the only thing I can think of. Move that out of the way. That's the cutest, smallest little aluminium shock tower I've ever seen. Nice and straight though. Really nice and straight. Looks lovely quality. Right, yeah, this isn't an easy access diff casing, is it? So yeah, it looks like we're going to have to take... Yeah, it's not a two-parter, is it? I thought it was a two-parter, like a bit like the Omni Terminator, where you just take the front off, but it's not. Well, it splits upwards and downwards rather than... Right, I think I'm going to have to unscrew these parts here. So these two screws here, that one there, and that one down there. And then, so I'm going to have to take the steering out of there, because that's going into the diff. Right, yeah, and then I'm going to have to take the diff screws from underneath from the other side. So yeah, these two here I'm going to have to take out as well. And hopefully, I should be able to just... There we go. Right, okay. I still don't want to come apart. I've got two more screws here as well. Alright. Well, that's a lot of work to get this diff out. It really is. And there we go. Really nice fit is that. Really smooth. Bearings feel alright, which is good. Right, so that's to one side. Remember as well, when you're putting this back together, don't forget to put your centre drive shaft back in as well. And that's nice and straight as well, which is a good sign. Right, so let's have a look at this diff. It's very loose. I mean, really loose. I'd probably say 10,000, 20,000 in there at the moment, just by the feel of it. I've got 1.5s again, so be really careful with these. Right, let's get into that. Right, there we go. The actual diff gasket is still in spot, which is really good. This diff, as you can probably see, is more or less empty. There's hardly any diff fluid in there at all. So yeah, let's get some diff fluid in here. So I think at this point, if you're going to do this, I mean, even if you whatever you've got around, even if you've only got 10,000 or 15,000, it's going to be better than what... There's nothing in there at all. That is completely empty. It feels like there's a splash in there, but there's not much in there at all. So yeah, I'm just using this, which is Core RC 50,000. Not going to fill it up right to the top, probably about 3/4 of the way. Won't need a lot in here. Just let that settle down, spin it around. That's a lot better. That's probably enough. I filled it up to about, like, say, 3/4 of the way, and that's enough in there. I mean, when you're doing shocks, which I'll show you in a little bit, you do want to make sure that they're settled and there's no air bubbles in it. With diffs, it's not really as much of an issue. Like I say, about 3/4 of the way up. It's nicely coated in there now. So just be able to sit this back straight on. Make sure I line up with the holes. Now, one thing you want to do when you're putting these screws back in is don't just put one in all the way and then do the rest. I would do that side and that side, then go around like clockwise, just turning a little bit at a time so you've got them all in nice and evenly. Now I've got all 4 in kind of halfway. I'll do that one a bit, and you get the idea. Just nice and evenly tighten them up. And there we go. All 4 screws nice and tight, nice and evenly put in. And there we go. And see that? Feels a lot better. Still nice and smooth, but it just feels there's a lot more resistance in there. Now, one thing I forgot to do before I took it out, I usually do mark which side it went in. And I've just had to look at my footage, and it was that way. If you put it the wrong way back in, your car won't go forward or backwards. It'll just try and like go into itself. So you always make sure that you kind of mark which side it came out of. Some diff housings will have like a groove where this gear goes, but this one hasn't. So it will fit in either way, and you'll put it all back together, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to try and push itself. So, right, we'll get this one back together, get it back on the car. I'll just try to think if there would have been a simpler way to take that off, but I don't think there was, because you have to unscrew it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's because these 2 screws here are the final screws you need to take out to lift it, and they're actually under the steering arm. So there's no way to get to them screws without actually taking the full thing out, unless you take all the steering out, but then that's even more screws. So I'm just going to tell you how many screws that was to take that out. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 screws. So yeah, a lot of screws. Like I say, we'll get this back in with the power of YouTube and magic. I'll get this back in now, and then we'll have a look at the rear diff. Just putting my front end back on. I thought I'd check all the bearings. The bearings are fine. The other side of my hub's fine, but this is my front hub. And I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that bearing has gone. Now I could try just putting some grease GT85 something in it just to free it up, but I think I'm going to take it apart and have a look and see exactly what's happened to this bearing, and see if I've got any of my spares that'll fit. I don't know if it's the front bearing or the rear bearing that's gone, but we'll investigate and I'll get back to you. So I managed to get these bearings out with it took a long time, and they were really stuck in there. Well, the axle was really stuck in there anyway. So this bearing, the outer bearing, seems alright, it's quite smooth. The inner bearing is completely seized, and this is a problem with unsealed bearings. They just seize so easily. There's nothing to protect any of the moisture or water going in there. So I've got a bag of bearings. These are bearings I've collected over the years. I'm hoping that I've got some that'll fit these, but they do seem a bit of an odd size, so we'll soon see. And unfortunately, I won't be able to tell you. I mean, in the instruction manual, it should tell you the size of the bearings, hopefully, but we'll see if we've got any that fit. I see they're too big, which is a shame. Again, just a little bit too big, a little bit too small. But out of all them spare bearings I've got, which is quite a lot, nothing fits. So these are definitely unusual size. So it might be hard to get sealed bearings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ones out of my ROG1, which are exactly the same, and they're going to have to go in. And again, that's the issue with these shielded bearings. There's no real way to kind of get them apart and re-grease them. Whereas with sealed bearings, even if they go, you can take the seal off. Right, there we go. I've got the bearings out of the ROG1. As you can see, it's moving a lot more smoothly now, so it'll do for now. Right, let's have a look at these shocks. Take them apart completely, then we'll measure everything. I'm going to get rid of the liquid in these completely because I'm just going to put my own in. So this one's actually, it's about half full of liquid. It looks quite thin, to be fair. Let's get that out. There we go. Let's open this one up. Yeah, that's got a lot less liquid in it. And the actual, this is where we've got the issue with this shock. So it is the same size. It's because that's come off. That's a shame. So why has that just broke, or is it just not being put on properly in the first place? So the C-clips come off the bottom. This is the issue with using C-clips on these shocks. So there's a C-clip on the top, but there should be one underneath it as well. And it's fallen off. So I'm hoping, yep, there it is. So literally we just need to clip that back on. Now that is quite hard to do. What I'm going to do is take this one off, click that back onto where it's meant to go, then put this back on, and then put the top one on. And hopefully I don't damage this C-clip in the process or lose it. I have got some spare somewhere, but there we go. Then I'm going to put this back on the bottom, click that back on, put this back on here. And then this is the fun bit, trying to get the C-clip on the top of here. Hate doing this, hate C-clips, absolute nightmare. You can get tools that are specially designed to put them on, but yeah. Now I need to try and, if I do this without it going across the room, I'll be really happy. God. That was easier than I expected. There we go. That's back on. So now they're the same size. Fantastic. Right, that's fixed. The thinnest shock oil I have is 600. I don't know whether this is a little bit higher, not to be totally honest with you. I'd probably say more 400 would probably be better, but I think 600 will be fine. It's not too thick. So we'll use this for now and see how it goes. So when I'm doing shocks, I always get that back in first. Now if you're struggling to push that through, just unscrew the bottom slightly and then it should push through a little bit better. There we go. Right, I'm going to fill this up. Yeah, I think that should be fine, 600 actually. It's a lot thinner than I thought. It's the thinnest one I have, so... And I'm going to push it up and down to try and get rid of any air bubbles. Then I'm just going to put it into the spring. I'm going to push it all the way up, and then I'm just going to sit in the spring and let it sit there for a good 10-15 minutes, just letting all the air bubbles go. Let's get the other one done. I kind of find doing shocks quite therapeutic. I know a lot of people don't like doing them, but I quite like it, to be fair. Push that up a few times, let any air bubbles out, top it back up, push it all the way in, put it into the spring and let it sit. So these have been sat now for a good 10 minutes, so they should have rid of all the air bubbles. So when you're putting the top back onto these, I recommend leaving the rod end all the way up to the bottom so it's not hanging out. Screw the top cap in nice and slowly. Not all the way, not tight, just about 3/4 of the way in. Then push up and down a little bit. So any air that's in there can come out. And then tighten it up. Again, just push that in. Shouldn't really feel any pressure. Tighten that up, full it. And then that should come in and out. Now that's got a bit of resistance to it, which you don't want. So I'm going to take the shock cap, screw it off a little bit more, and then push it in, hold it in place, tighten that up. There we go, perfect. So there's no resistance there now. It goes in nice and smoothly. If you keep getting resistance on it, then just keep on unscrewing the cap a bit, pushing it right in. You know, you can also undo the bottom as well. That sometimes helps because that lets air come out the bottom as well. And the shocks feel so much nicer. Feel progressive. You know, there's a bit of pressure but not too much. But they feel absolutely lovely. Perfect. I'll get these back on the car now. So that's the front end all put back together. To be fair, yes, it was a lot of screws, but it actually went together a lot easier than it came apart. The suspension feels so much nicer now, just so much more progressive. It just feels so much nicer. The rebound on everything, I mean, we'll see when it runs if the thickness is okay or not. Yeah, it just feels so much nicer. So that's the front end all done, all back together. The diffs feel so much nicer. They just feel smoother, but there's a bit of, you know, in the front now, you've got a bit of resistance, which is what I wanted. So let's get to the back and let's see how hard the rear is to take apart, if it's easier or harder than the front. I think it might be a little bit easier. I've got an idea of what I'm going to try and do. It might not work, it might work, but we'll soon find out. Let's get on to this. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of the wing, get that out of the way completely. And that's a 2.5, is it? No, 2. Yes. Now, these are very awkward to get to. This is when you want some drivers that have got like the ball ends on them, because they are really awkward to get into, but should better get them. But yeah, ball end drivers really help in this. I think, you know what, I'm going to take this off, make life a little bit easier. I'm struggling here and I just need to take the body post off. It's literally one screw here to take the body post off, so I'd be daft not to. There we go. Now it's a lot easier to get into these screws. I just need to remember to put that body post on last. As you can see, it's held up really well as the wing. Wing mount, the wing, no damage at all. I've landed it on the wing a few times and on the roof, so that's really good to see. So I'm thinking with this, if I can undo these 2 bolts here, if I can undo that bolt there, the bolts here, these 2 here, and these 2 at the rear, surely that top diff cover I should better just lift out rather than taking all the bolts from underneath and removing the whole thing. I'm probably going to have to remove the actual cover here as well, but I'm going to have to remove that anyway, even if I do it like I did at the front. So I'm thinking, remove this cover here, then remove them 4 bolts, and this should just lift off. Undo the shocks obviously, but I'm going to take the shocks off to take a look at them anyway. Right, let's try that. Just saves you having to take all the bolts off from underneath as well, which I don't think I should have to take off, but we shall soon see. Now these rear shocks actually feel fine, so I think I'm going to just leave them as they are because they feel absolutely great. I'll check the other one as well. Yeah, and these rear ones feel absolutely fine, both of them, which is great. So I'm going to leave them as they are. Right, so if I remember rightly, I've got to take all these screws from the top, and then there's 2 from underneath to remove this whole case. 1.5s again. Right, let's remove these off here. Anybody wants to put in the comments how many screws do you guess we have to remove from the rear to get it off? 22 from the front. So let's see how many C8s from the rear. So from the chassis, we've got this one here and this one here. Can't forget as well, I need to take this screw out here, which holds the centre brace in as well. Nearly forgot about that. I'd be like, why is it not coming out? Right, let's lift that. Whole thing should just lift out. I don't think I needed to take that one out then. I could have lifted my It's getting it out of the way, innit? Right, let's get these two undone first. Sway bar. That is very weird. I've not noticed that before. So everything on here is Hex hardware. The rear sway bar has got Phillips screw heads, cross screw heads. The front one's got Hex heads. How weird's that? Right, I need to see if I've got a screwdriver on there. Luckily, we have a Phillips on us. Just hope it can buy. Yep. Well, how strange is that a mistake? Right, let's move that away. There we go. Just push that down. Right, let's get these 4 screws off and see if my idea works or not. If it does, like I say, it just saves you taking off all the bottom screws. And would this work on the front? Now this would work on the front, but you'd have to remove the whole of the steering column. So I think the way I did it is probably easier on the front, but completely up to you. But I think that's easier because you're gonna have to remove all the steering components. But on the rear, there is no steering components, just the cover here for the diff. So yeah, we'll just get these screws and then we'll have a count of how many. If we get this into this like this, we'll have a count of how many screws we'll have to take out. Sorry, I keep catching the camera. So hard to actually do this with the camera. I really appreciate them likes, them thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe, but it does really help the channel and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Well, I think this is going to work. I can feel it lifting. Moment of truth. Yes, there we go. Look at that. Access to the rear diff. Let's count how many screws we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 screws. 2 less screws than the front, but we've not had to take the bottom off with anything from the bottom of the chassis, which is really nice. Hopefully now I should be able to just pull this out. Fingers crossed. Maybe not. And there we go. Comes out. It's a bit awkward, a little bit awkward to get out, but we've got it out. And yeah, this diff don't feel like it's got any fluid in it either. Feels empty. Right, let's have a look inside this one. I'm guessing absolutely nothing, but you never know. Oh, just careful with this. I've got some spare ones, but just put that back inside here. Gasket, make sure it's lined up with the holes. There we go. Don't want to damage the gasket or it will leak. All right, yeah, as you can see, completely empty. I mean, there's a, it's got moisture in there, but nothing to speak of at all. Right, I'll show you what I'm putting in this. So as I mentioned, 30,000 CST. The reason being, obviously, the way I like it to drive, but again, it's very personal choice. Same process as the front, about 3/4 of the way full. Just let it sit for a few minutes, let it soak in, give it a run around, top it up again, and we're good to go. There we go, that's all screwed back in, and that does again feel so much nicer. Still nice and smooth, but just got a little bit of tension. Right, I think the best thing to do now is I'm going to get this back in the car, get it all back together. I'll show you once I've got it back together, and then we're going to take it back out and just see how those changes affect the handling of this car. There we go, all done, all back together, spot on. Suspension feels absolutely lovely, just so smooth. The rear end was fine anyway, but the front feels so much progressive and better. Lovely and smooth, really smooth. That sounds absolutely perfect. And the rear wheels feel just like it just feels right. So, do you know what? That went back together really easily. I timed myself off camera putting that rear end back together. 12 minutes that took. It's not that bad. And you know what? I know I was moaning about all the screws you have to take out. It's not the easiest to work on, but it's certainly not the hardest to work on either. I didn't once get stressed with this car. I didn't once have any screws that I had issues with. I had nothing round off. Everything went back together really well. So yeah, you know, when you've enjoyed working on a car, then you know that it's not that bad really. And it's definitely worth doing if you want to run this car and you want to, you know, do speed running, or if you want to race it. And whatever you're going to use this car for, I really would research on things like diffs. It's not as simple as, you know, I've done it the way I like my cars to run on the BMX track. If you're going to speed run this or take it to a track, then you might want to set it up a little bit differently. My best advice is go on to either Facebook or the forums for people who race buggies, and there's going to be loads of great information on there. But hopefully you found that useful anyway. Let's get this to BMX track and let's see how those changes and how that has affected this car and how it runs. Right, let's see how she runs then with the diffs all done and the shocks tuned. Oh, definitely. That's how I like my cars to run. You see that back end? Not spinning out, but just swinging out. So power into corners. Nice. Oh, 100%. Definitely feels better for me. Nice. It's sliding and your back wheels are coming out. You've got that control because you can pull it through your front and correct. Let's try it around here, because it was, every time I was putting it around here before, it was kind of spinning. Oh, perfect. Wow. Let's try that again. I love doing this corner. Powering around the corner. And oh, nice. Nice. Do love this car. Absolutely awesome. So much fun. Nice. Awesome car. Whoa, look at that jump. Oh, beautiful jumps, beautiful. Air control as well. That's one thing about changing this as well. It does make your air control a little bit better. Oh, beautiful! Well, hit LVC again. That's another 2 battery packs for it. Nothing broken. Absolutely so happy with how it's running now with that diff tuning. Let's get it back and I'll tell you my final thoughts on this car. So here we are, back from the BMX track. She's a bit mucky, got her outside to give her a clean. Just wanted to say what I really think about this car. I've had about 10 battery packs through this car now, and it's been absolutely awesome. The only thing I've broke is them 2 tie rods, which I've talked about in the last couple of videos. Apart from that, nothing has broke at all. Shocks, obviously tuned them, they've been fine on this one. Diffs been tuned, definitely made a difference, definitely made it drive the way I like it to drive. Air control, the way this car jumps, the way it actually performs, excellent. No concerns at all, it just runs so nicely. Body has held up really well, as you can see, no cracks, no dents or anything on it. Absolutely perfect. And as you can see inside the car, everything is spot on. I've even glued the on button back down. It's not going anywhere now. That's tire glued holding that down. But yeah, absolutely fine, still nice and smooth, no damage anywhere. The wing's still fine, the diff casings are absolutely fine, all the electronics are working absolutely fine. So yeah, great little car, really enjoyed running this. I hope you find this video very useful. I know it's a little bit long, but obviously I wanted to show you how to change the diffs and how to change the diffs, and then show you it running after I've done that. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give them likes up and also subscribe if you haven't already. And if you like this video, check one of these videos out here. Thank you, happy RCing.